even an article that appeared in a local blog that says a wild scene at the El Paso Times. What was wild about it? He went to the door, knocked on the door, said, hey, I have a letter to, and furthermore, there was preparation because one of my staff went to the door and says, we'd like to deliver a letter, what's the protocol? And they said, well, you can give it to the secretary. I said, fine. So we had already established a protocol to approach the door so we would not have any kind of untoward incident. And yet, the way that the action is described is part of that ongoing bias that finally the judge had to speak up.
Well, I did watch what 16 minutes we had recorded, and I would call it a bit of a wild scene. It was odd for me to see our county judge act in that manner. David, is that behavior becoming of a county judge? Is that the way he should act?
That's really for people to judge. I'm not going to make that judgment. Okay. The story was mine, describing it as a wild scene. It kind of was that. You know, there was a lot of reporters there. There was the judge making really, really strong accusations against the newspaper, calling out a newspaper publisher and the editors to come out and meet him on the street. That is, in all of my years, actually, things like that have happened a couple of times. You know, I do remember once, a few years ago, when Don Flores, the editor of the Times, did come out and engaged a crowd that was protesting a newspaper endorsement, and his statements, the statement that he'd made at the time, saying something along to the effect that I am the editorial board, because other members of the editorial board had leaned differently than he did. That statement followed him for a long, long, long time after that.
Well,
okay? So that's the only thing that made it wild. And the knocking on the door, nobody opened it, everybody crowded around. It was a crazy scene.
There was nothing wild about the scene. What was wild for me, however, being present, was Cito Negron laughing derisively at the county judge. Now, presumably, Cito and David have written a number of articles together. You would expect that people would show at least a minimum of respect to a process that's unfolding before them if they're going to report on it. To laugh derisively at someone because they don't agree with what he's doing, or because they don't agree the approach that he's taking in order to make his views known, to me, not only is unprofessional, that may be wild, but that was behind the cameras. What was in front of the camera, what was being described in the news story, was a county judge of El Paso, the highest elected official in the county, going and saying to Ray Stafford, why are you continuing to write in the news section in a way that insinuates wrongdoing when he has not been accused, no one has called him, nothing has happened that would indicate that anything untoward is going on.
Well, we'll get to more of that. Obviously, the editorial and what was written, what your problems are with it. I have to admit, though, Jaime, I got a bit of a chuckle out of this situation as well. You're watching ABC 7 Extra. When we come back, we'll take some of your emails and your phone calls. If you have a question or a comment for one of our guests, you can call our comment line at 496-1775. You can also email us